Good early afternoon. We are live here on the Blue Plate Special. I'm Andy Andrews, and we are at Wisdom Harbor Studios in beautiful downtown Orange Beach, Alabama. And it is beautiful today. It is beautiful weather. We have a great crowd of people in the studio, the crowd that counts here in the studio. And Mandy, good to see you. We're here at the wharf. Hey, you like the shirt? The shirt says, every snack you make, every meal you bake, every bite you take, I'll be watching you. Yep. This is one of the newer shirts from $100 Lifestyles. Right here, the cornerstone of the wharf, which we also have the escalator statues, the famous escalator statues, four of them, life size. They look real, just amazing. Celis Mushy, hi. Deborah Richardson, good morning. Irene Robinson, hello. Heather Olson, and to all the people in Utah. Nancy Bergen, hey. You're visiting family in Las Vegas? Wow. Las Vegas. You know, Las Vegas is not like it used to be. I'm just saying. I mean, it used to be, it didn't used to be crazy, I don't guess. I mean, just because it was created by the mob. But back when I was going there with Joan Rivers and Kenny Rogers and Randy Travis, it was one of those kind of places where you could go and get the buffet for $2.95 somewhere. And then they went family friendly. They had this whole thing of going family friendly. And when that didn't work, they went way back over the line. And so, I mean, now you can walk down the sidewalk and there are people handing out cards for prostitutes. Seriously. So, it's not family friendly. But hey, Disney's not family friendly anymore either. So Disney and Pixar have gone to R-rated stuff. So the world in which we live. So in the studio we have the Carters from Louisiana. Hey Carters. And Rhonda Robertson. Good afternoon. Patricia Clapp, watching from North Carolina, and you shared. Marcy Crosser Taylor, Pasco, Washington, Eva Jean Hodge. It's ice cold where you are. Oh my gosh. Hannah Gadlich from Kentucky, Deborah Richardson, East Texas. Wow. Christy Woods, my sister, you shared. Shelley Hess. Good day, folks, from Canada. Wow, we have a great show today. Now, what is our date today? Today is
the 29th.
The 29th of March. And remember that old saying from Shakespeare, beware the 29th of March. Today we're gonna do a This Day in History, and we have some March 29th history that is just amazing. I mean, it's amazing. Deanna Kirkpatrick, hey, and you're listening while watching your grandson ride his dirt bike. Tammy Nance, hey, how you doing? You know what I'm drinking today in my coffee cup? I'm not drinking just Jones Java. I'm drinking hot Dr. Pepper. Dave Hurkov from Minnesota. You ever had hot Dr. Pepper? No? I just happened to think of it when I saw Dr. Pepper back there. My mom used to heat Dr. Pepper and put a lemon slice in it. And this tastes like my mom. Deborah Richardson, you're cleaning your greenhouse. It's hard to stop. Oh, you had to stop and watch. Not it's hard to stop and watch. I'm sorry. Donna Fielder Johnson, Donna Johnson here in Mobile, Carlene Hurdle watching from Virginia, Butch Ellard from the Metroplex of Tuscaloosa. That's Mecca, Tuscaloosa, where people turn toward Bear Bryant. And so, do you know this day, this year, last year you were at Wisdom Harbor? Wow, that's this day in history on the Ides of the 29th of March. Anyway, Christy, do you remember drinking hot Dr. Pepper? Or were you so little that they wouldn't let you have any? You might have been underage for hot Dr. Pepper. Well, Christy, you love hot Dr. Pepper with lemon. So you guys watched Dr. Barb this morning? I mean, if you haven't seen the podcast, if you haven't seen the Professional Noticer podcast, the Dr. Barb episode is stunning. I mean, it is stunning. It will blow your mind. I've never seen anything like it. I'm just telling you, okay? Ron Havens, when you were a kid, Dr. Pepper used to advertise on TV, hot with lemon was the way to drink it in winter. Really? They had commercials for it? I thought my mom made it up. Well, either way, I'm having it here. Okay, are you ready? We're going to start with 1792. March 29th, 1792. You remember back that far?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I do too. I remember that King Gustav III of Sweden died on this date after being shot in the back at a masquerade ball at Stockholm's Royal Opera 13 days earlier. It took him 13 days to die. He was at a masquerade ball and somebody shot him in the back. King Gustav III of Sweden. Now, how they shoot him? How they shoot him? Shoot him in the back, for one thing, and the other thing is it's a masquerade ball. How'd they know they were shooting the right person?
That's a good point.
You know, I mean, and I understand he was dressed as Michael Scott from The Office. Maybe that's why they shot him. If he'd have been dressed like Chris Rock, they'd have just slapped him, I guess. In 1795, Ludwig van Beethoven was 24 years old. And on this date, the Ides of the 29th of March, he had his debut performance as a pianist in Vienna. And the crowd went nuts when he played Crocodile Rock and gave him a standing ovation when he did Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. That's Beethoven. And then in 1827, 20,000 people attended Ludwig van Beethoven's funeral in Vienna, his burial, and he was 56. Wow. First concert, and then his burial. Today in history, Ludwig van Beethoven was buried, and 20,000 people showed up. You know, he published his first composition at the age of 12, and after composing for 44 years, Beethoven officially began decomposing. I just had to say that.
It's a good one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, my gosh. All right, in 1852. Do you know what happened in 1852? Do you guys know what happened in 1852? Any idea? I don't know why I think this is funny, but I mean, this is true. This happened on the Ides of March 29th. In 1852, Ohio made it illegal for children under 18 to work more than 10 hours a day. It's like, hey, you 6-year-old, you can't work more than 10 hours a day. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, that just seems.
It's a little progressive for me, but
Yeah, yeah, a little progressive. Here's a good one. On March 29th, 1912, Captain Robert Falcon Scott is very British. He was stormbound in a tent near the South Pole. He was making his second shot for the South Pole, but he got beaten by 5 weeks, and I guess he was so mad about it that sat in a tent near the South Pole. But they Lawrence Oates was his second in command, and a couple of weeks earlier, Lawrence Oates had recommended that they kill their horses to eat them because he said they're gonna die out here anyway. And he said, Commander, I believe that you will come to regret not taking my advice. And so there they were on this date, and the horses had indeed frozen, and they couldn't cut them up to eat them. And so they had no food. It was minus 40 degrees. And they found them years later and found Scott's diary, okay? And Scott wrote that Lawrence Oates' last words were, "I am just going outside and maybe sometime." He was sometime. He never came up. But on this date, Scott makes his last entry in his diary and said, "The end cannot be far." And as I understand it, when they found him, he was kind of like that. He was a Scott sickle. Mark Lowry, hello, buddy. So glad you're here. So glad you're here. I was talking to somebody about you just this morning, and I was saying nice things. So how about that? Hey, in 1927, on this day, the Ides of March 29th, Henry Seagrave raced his Sunbeam at Daytona. Now, first of all, did you know they were having races at Daytona in 1927?
I did not.
And would you have any idea what a Sunbeam was?
I don't.
I looked it up. It's a kind of car, and in 1927, he was going 203 miles per hour at Daytona. I mean, that just blows my mind because I would have thought they'd have been, in 1927 would have been going like 40 miles an hour or something. But 203 miles an hour in a Sunbeam. And you'd think a car that could go 203 miles an hour in 1927 would still be around. But no. But a couple of years later, he tried to do it on water. And he was trying to make a water speed record. And he did 2 runs, made it to 98.76 miles per hour. Had to make that 3rd run. had to try to go 100 miles an hour on water. And the boat turned over and killed him. You know, just stayed on the water a little too long. Yep. In 1929, U.S. President Herbert Hoover had the first telephone installed on the desk at the Oval Office in the White House. And it did him no good because nobody else had a phone. And they didn't have anybody to call. But everybody who visited, he said, "See that phone? That's the red phone. That's the hotline." But nobody else had a phone, so they didn't have his number. And he also became the first president to never get a phone call in the White House. In 1940, get this, on this date, the boxer Joe Louis knocked out Johnny Paycheck in 2 rounds to retain the heavyweight boxing title.
I can imagine getting ready for a big boxing event and it's over in 2 rounds. That would be quite the disappointment.
Well, I mean, Johnny Paycheck.
That doesn't even sound like a real name.
He's a country music guy. I mean, you know, Joe Louis,
Yeah.
and he was a little bitty squirt. He was a little bitty squirt.
Emily said it was like Johnny Cash.
He made up his name. It was Johnny Paycheck, and what did he do? He did take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. But he was a little bitty scrawny sucker, and of course Joe Louis would knock him out in 2 rounds. But you remember those Mike Tyson fights? Remember those Mike Tyson fights that just last for 2 seconds? You forget 2 rounds, it'd be 2 seconds. And that was Mike Tyson was the fighter. For years, people would say, look at how much money they're making. I'd get in the round for $10 million. I get in the ring with the guy for $10 million. But Mike Tyson was the first fighter that people looked at him and went, no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. There ain't no amount of money make me get in there with him. I mean, it was.
I heard Mike Tyson's going to be next year's Oscars host.
It could be. It could be. Yeah, I mean, no, he wouldn't be quite as passive, would he? In 1942, the British cruiser HMS Trinidad. Now, this is on this date. Okay, so the boat and other escort boats were in combat with German destroyers. And the Trinidad hit and damaged one of these German vessels, then launched a torpedo attack. And one of the Trinidad's torpedoes had a faulty switch or something. It's possibly affected. They were up in the North Atlantic, possibly affected by the icy waters, the sub-zero conditions. But the torpedo turned around. I mean, it was going slow, and then it turned around and headed back toward the Trinidad. They're usually going 46 knots, and so this was not expected. It was slow, and it turned back and came toward the Trinidad. And the Trinidad was performing evasive zigzags, but the tornado struck the Trinidad, the torpedo, not the tornado. It probably felt like a tornado. It killed 32 guys. But, I mean, can you just imagine?
No.
you shot yourself. I mean, they torpedoed themselves. Okay, here is a very cool one now. And we'll spend just a moment on this. In 1943, now, Lil M, I bet you don't even know this happened, okay? And so I'm going to tell you, and then you can tell me later if you even knew this happened. But on this date in 1943, rationing began. Did you know we had rationing in America? Oh, you did not. She's going, oh, yeah, I knew. No, you didn't. You don't know who the Oak Ridge Boys are. How could you know that we had rationing in World War II?
Because this is World War II, not the Oak Ridge Boys.
I think the Oak Ridge Boys are right up there. I think they have their place in history.
All right. Well,
Maybe not as big a place as World War II, but World War II put a heavy burden on U.S. supplies of basic materials like food, shoes, metal, paper, and rubber. And the military was growing, as was the nation's effort to aid its allies overseas. Of course, civilians still needed all these materials for consumer goods. So to meet this surging demand, the federal government on this date, the federal government took steps to conserve crucial supplies, and they established a rationing system that impacted virtually every family in the United States. Rationing involved setting limits on purchasing certain high-demand items, like the government issued a number of points to each person. Even babies, which had to be turned in along with the money to purchase goods made with the restricted items. I wrote that incorrectly because, back that up just a second, Matt, because I said they issued points to each person, and I should have said which had to be turned in along with the money, and they even issued points to babies. But I said they issued points to each person, even babies, which had to be turned in along with the money. You had to turn in your baby. If you were going to get food, you not only had to turn in your ration card, you had to turn in your baby. That's how tough the rationing was. Bet you didn't know that, little M. But in 1943, for example, to buy a pound of bacon, a shopper would not only have to pay for it, they would have to turn in seven ration points to buy the meat. So these points came in the form of stamps that were distributed to citizens in books throughout the war. And this was rationing. Mike Williams says, was toilet paper involved? Well, tires were one of the first products to be rationed. This started in 1942, okay, just weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Everyday consumers could no longer buy new tires. They could only have their existing tires patched or have the treads replaced. Doctors, nurses, and fire and police personnel could purchase new tires, but even they had to apply at their local rationing board for approval. Now, can you just see can you imagine who your local rationing board would be? You can bet it's these people that don't have anything to do. That's who it is. They're the local rationing board. I bet you all over America, it was these busybodies that had nothing to do. And somebody would come in and, like, some doctor would come in and said, I need new tires. And they would go, let's see if you really need them. I bet you that's what those local rationing boards were like. But good functional tires became so valuable that the boards often advised auto owners to keep track of the serial numbers on their tires in case they were stolen. Personal automobiles were also rationed. You couldn't buy new cars because auto manufacturers were converting their factories to produce Jeeps and ambulances and tanks. Gasoline was rationed, and by the summer, by the summer of 43, even bicycles were rationed. The government began rationing certain foods, starting with sugar. Coffee was added to the list, followed by all meat. All meat. They rationed all meat. They rationed canned fish, cheese, and canned milk. And, newspapers and home ec classes and government organizations were offering all sorts of tips to help families stretch their ration points and have as much variety in their meals as they possibly could. There were posters urging Americans to plant victory gardens and can their own vegetables to free up more factory processed foods for use by the military. Restaurants instituted meatless menus on certain days to help conserve the nation's meat supply, and advertisers offered up recipes for meatless dinner like walnut cheese patties and creamed eggs over pancakes. They wouldn't have had to ration any of that to me. But macaroni and cheese, that is when macaroni and cheese became a deal. It became this nationwide sensation because it was cheap, it was filling, and required very few ration points. Kraft sold 50 million boxes of macaroni and cheese during the war. And rationing didn't end. I mean, the war ended in 45, but rationing didn't end until 1946, and sugar was rationed until 1947. How about that? Marcy Crosser Taylor, your mother-in-law talked about the rationing. Only 2 pairs of shoes a year, which she hated. Well, of course she did. She was a woman. How can a woman get by on 2 pairs of shoes a year? A guy would get by on 2 pairs of shoes for 10 years. It's like dress and tennis. Dress shoes and sneakers. That's it for guys. But, my wife, Polly, or as we call her in Orange Beach, Little Imelda Marcos, she's like a shoe hound. Marcy Crosser Taylor, your grandfather had a farm, so he got all the gasoline and tires he needed because he grew wheat. Wow. That's pretty cool. I mean, just I'd have planted wheat in my front yard. So that's my victory garden. Now give me some gas. Give me some tires. Cheryl Edwards' grandfather worked in a packing house as a meat inspector during that time, and he was able to get meat there. So your grandfather was sneaking meat out of the packing house. So your mom's family was able to trade their meat rations for sugar and other things like shoes they needed. So she probably existed on more than just a couple of pairs of shoes a year. Irene Robinson, you're enjoying the Just Jones Java as you listen, and it's not rationed. Just Jones Java is not rationed. It is 25% off. It's caffeine month.
For till what? Is tomorrow the last day of the month?
No.
No, next day?
Day after tomorrow.
All right. Till Thursday.
Is the last day of the month. And so it's 25% off. Get it while it's not rationed, okay? Now, on this date in 1951, Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical The King and I. Is it Hammerstein? Hammerstein? Rodgers and Hammerstein? Rodgers and Hammerstein. I think it's probably Stein. We'll go with Stein. Okay, so Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical, The King and I, was based on the novel Anna and the King of Siam. On this date, it opened at the St. James Theater in New York City and did 1,246 straight performances. And Yul Brynner starred in it. He would lead the cast of this of the 1956 film version, and he would play the role in plays over 4,000 times. And Yul Brynner was known for The King and I. He was known for The Magnificent Seven, but I think his best work was as a robot in Westworld. You ever seen that, Matt?
I saw the first season when it came out.
No.
Oh wait, no, the old show, the old movie. That's right.
It's a movie, not a season.
I was surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, you've seen Westworld?
Yeah, I mean the movie. He is creepy, because he's like, he was like he was the gunfighter, a robot gunfighter. In 1978, on this date, the variety TV show The Carol Burnett Show last aired on CBS in the U.S., and it had won 25 Emmy Awards. That was the end of an era. And she was so glad that we had this time together. In 1986, Beatle records officially went on sale in Russia. What happened? Why were they able to get Beatle? Why were they? I guess I know why they were keeping them out, but what happened? Because the wall didn't fall in '86.
Are you looking to me for confirmation?
Well, I'm just curious as to why. What was? I'll have to look that up. What was going on that they said yes to the Beatles after they had been a thing for like 30 years, I guess. I don't know.
It was the food shortages. They're worried Beatles were going to come in and eat all the wheat,
That's what it was. That's what they were rationing. As a matter of fact, Russia rationed the Beatle records. Get one Beatle record per family. In 1987, on this date, WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan. 93,173 people watched Hulk Hogan successfully defend his WWF heavyweight title against Andre the Giant. Okay, let me tell you right now, that is how we know for sure that wrestling is fake. Because there's no way anybody's beating Andre the Giant. You ever seen that guy? I mean, he's like 7 feet 5 inches tall, weighs 550 pounds. I mean, there's no way you could beat Andre the Giant. And wrestling is fake. Christy Solars, you're going to WrestleMania this weekend with the kids? Are you serious? Wow, well, it's fake, Christy. It's fake. I hate to tell you that, but it's fake. Colin Cowherd calls wrestling fans booger eaters, but I won't do that. I wouldn't do that. Especially since you're going to the big SmackDown, Christy. Okay, in 1989, the 61st Academy Awards, Rain Man, the Best Picture, and the Best Actor was Dustin Hoffman, and then Jodie Foster won Best Actress. And as soon as she got up there, Dustin Hoffman went back up on stage and punched her in the face in 1989. No, that didn't happen. But you saw what happened the other night. I mean, and I want you to think about this. Will Smith committed a violent act, took no responsibility for his actions, and then blamed it on his feelings. It's a perfect example of most of what's tilting society downhill. His son, Jaden Smith, after it happened, he tweeted, "And that's how we do it." Very proud of his father. Then 10 minutes later, Will Smith is back on stage accepting an award. And among the other things he said that night, including 2 times saying the F word very loudly, he said, "I'm overwhelmed by what God is calling on me to do and be in this world. I'm being called on in my life to love people. I want to be a vessel for love." And then, showing even more evidence about why our society is circling the drain, the actors, directors, and producers who create 99% of the content America's families watch gave Will Smith a standing ovation. An hour later, he was at a crowded party after the Oscars, dancing while holding his trophy. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I mean, does anybody think that if anybody else had walked out of that audience and slapped the host, that they wouldn't have been in jail 15 seconds later? They'd have been in handcuffs 15 seconds later. So, and then he apologized to the Academy. He apologized to his fellow nominees. Never apologized to Chris Rock. And of course, I mean, it's no secret about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett's marriage, their open marriage. So apparently Will Smith only gets mad if you joke about his wife. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'll guarantee you that comedians all over now, I guarantee you what's running through their mind is, okay, who's going to be the Will Smith at my next concert? You know, who's going to be upset with some joke I tell, and they're not just going to moan, they're going to get up and punch me. What are we doing? And at what point, do we do something else? I mean, I have been amazed for a while at some of what I see the American public support. I mean, you can see videos on YouTube that have a billion views, and they're filthy. They're just, I mean, they're horrendous. And so I just wonder about a society that supports with their money, artists and entertainers, they support them with their money, and yet they would not tolerate that behavior in their own families. So at some point, I mean, there are alternatives, there are alternatives. And at some point, somebody's got to vote with their wallet. So that is amazing that room represents probably 99% of the content produced for the American public. I mean, because it's not just movie people there. I mean, there are people that from the television industry that get invited to this. And so in that room is probably the people that produce 99% of the content for American families. And they give Will Smith a standing ovation. And the video of the slap has 70 million views on YouTube in 24 hours. So, amazing. But we're glad to be here with you today. And we'll see you Thursday on wisdomharbor.com. And so, hey, there you go. If you're not a member of wisdomharbor.com, we'd love for you to join. It's less than $3 a month, and which is less than a gallon of gasoline. So, but I mean, people are griping about the price of gas, and I bought let me see that. And have you got a bottle of water out there?
Probably.
Yeah, let me see that bottle of water, Lillian.
Don't forget it's hers.
Yeah.
She wants to finish it.
This is Dasani water from CVS. It's a 16-ounce bottle. So this would take about 10 of these to make a gallon of water. And at CVS was $1.89. And so they're selling them like crazy. And so we're all griping about gas, and yet we're paying, what, $12 or $14 a gallon for water. This is a can of air that I bought for the computer the other day to blow off the keys. $10. So we're griping about $3.99 for gas, but we're happily paying $12 a gallon for water and $10 for a can of air. We'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.